I go, look, in 10 years from now, are you going to be doing what you're doing now? And he said, no, definitely not. So he knows the writing's on the wall, and he's not being forced out. And it's coming from the pain and suffering is overwhelming the rationalization of things are okay. And so now is the time that you do want to start flipping the switch. Yo, Chris, man, what are you doing? What are you up to?
I'm just helping people reinvent their lives. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. Look, I'm going to join in.
Cool.
God bless, we're breaking these runs. Life too short to play it on speed run.
All right, my man, Todd. What are we talking about today? Fireside chat.
Fireside chat, man. By the way, for those of you listening to our podcast, Chris and I are face to face with a fire behind us. Maybe check out our YouTube and watch the video because it's really cool and it looks good as well. But, you know, today's episode is really important, Chris, because we're going to talk about how to know when it's the right time to make a big move and open yourself up to the notion of reinventing your career. And this episode was inspired by a series of conversations I've been having with one of my best friends who has the proverbial golden handcuffs chained on. For 2 years, he's called me and asked me for advice because he knows he needs to make a move, but it's just, quote, so hard to pull the trigger. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the money and the security that keeps us trapped in these toxic situations that have clearly run their course. It's also ego, attachment to old identity, and fear of the unknown, right? So, Chris, look, reinventing your career in midlife is not always just a walk in the park. It's a process of change that, in our opinion, should not be taken on alone or without any support, which is the very reason why we've launched this podcast, right? And also our reinvention community. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the stages of reinvention, because being able to see the map and where you are within it is the fastest way to get to a new and better destination. So we invite you to settle in, get out a notepad and pen, and jot things down, because this conversation is designed to have you see more clearly where you're at. And our goal today is to help you move forward with confidence and start taking the actions that you need to take, right? And so, Chris, I know for you, this topic is spot on.
Yeah, the golden handcuffs, right? It's a real thing. It's one of my favorite phrases to talk about in the context of reinvention. You're right, because I think people always think about the money and they're like, I need to make this much money and I can't change anything about that. People sort of treat their earning as very fragile. You know, I couldn't possibly do exactly the same thing or make the exact same money doing anything different than exactly what I'm doing, which on its face is just not true. But it's about so much more than the money, right? It really is about identity. It really is about how you think of yourself, how the people closest to you who rely on you think of you. It really is about a lifestyle. I mean, the list goes on. And so I think that when people look at it through a very narrow lens of, I simply just need to somehow find something better that still checks all these boxes in the exact same way as it's doing, I don't think that's a really realistic approach to it. And so I think that the people who have the golden handcuffs on, so to speak, a lot of times they're able to shoot down any idea or any notion that comes up before really giving it a chance. Maybe a big concept, one we should talk about a little bit in terms of approaching a possible reinvention, is just the openness that you have to start with, that open mind around possibilities, and being able to take a step back and really turn off the naysayer voice,
Right.
and think big picture to start.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, when I think about my buddy, it's also just like, how much pain is he willing to take, right? Because when you actually think about his situation, I know there's a lot of people that resonate with this. Like, from the outside, things look good. I followed the right path. I'm making the right money. I built the lifestyle that I want. From the outside, it's all great. But there's something on the inside where this pain and this kind of internal suffering builds up and something's off. Or just a recognition that for me to really move forward in my life and be happy and fulfilled, I know a change needs to happen at some point along the way. And I think when we talk about reinvention, we talk a lot about clarity and mindset and taking action, all these steps. But what you said is relevant, because even before we get there, there needs to be this recognition that I know that I need to make a change. Even just saying that's what I tell my buddy. I'm like, you know that you're going to need to make a change. And it's just saying those words opens up the doorway to the rest of the process that we love to talk about, which is reinventing your life and your career. But just getting to that point where I'm not going to stay in silent pain and silent suffering any longer. Like, you did this. Like,
Yeah.
how long were you in silent suffering in your career? How long does it take?
A long time. I mean, probably, man, it might have been a decade. It really might have been a decade, right? And I think there's so much caught up in that around, I had this notion of, well, this is what work is supposed to feel like. They call it work because it sucks, right? Which is, I was like, I don't know that that's true. I think they call it work because work is getting done, right? But I kind of had inherited a little bit of this baby boomer parents via depression grandparents notion of, you get a job, you hold on to that job for dear life until they pry it out of your cold dead hands, and then you get your gold watch at retirement. They literally forced my grandfather out the door at his job. He loved it so much.
What did he do?
He was a salesman, right? So he sold basically like forklifts and equipment for Caterpillar stuff. And it was like one of those things where he thought every job would be like his job. He was a big role model for me, but he loved the machinery and he was a mechanic and he loved talking about forklifts all day. I did not love talking about technology procurement and Excel all day, right? And so I was applying his rubric of what you do in a job and just kind of being like every day, like, I'm supposed to love this, or maybe I'm supposed to just hate it and stomach it. It wasn't feeling right. You asked, I mean, 4 years, for probably 10 years. I talk about this all the time as we talk about reinvention. I wish I had this podcast. I wish I had our community 10 years ago, because I think it would spark the possibility in me sooner,
Right.
to say, hey, you know, there are other possibilities. There are other things that you can consider. And yeah, it is scary to look at this life you've built and the financial elements of it and all the people that rely on you, but it is your one life,
Yeah,
right? So how much pain are you willing to take?
exactly.
What do you bring to the people in your life when you're experiencing that pain every day? I mean, that was the real catalyst for me. If I'm not going to take care of myself, I'm going to take care of the people that I love, my wife and my kids particularly, when I'm not bringing them my fullest self. To me, that was really the catalyst to say, okay, this has really got to change.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because, you know, with my friend who I mentioned in the beginning, he has a 15 or 16-year-old daughter. And I said, look, you're in a good situation in a lot of different ways, but would you want your daughter to be in this situation? Like, I flipped it.
Oh, yeah.
And that got him,
Yeah.
you know, because he was like, oh, man, that's a tough question, Todd, and got kind of pissed at me that I asked it. But I'm like, look, but that's the real question right here, right? And, you know, for him, and I think for a lot of people, the fear of loss of identity, you know, and he said to me very clearly, he's like, look, I've built this up for so long. And in some sense, forget about the money, okay, the financial part for a moment. That's a big part of this. But in some sense, he has this internal sense of being worthy, because he's built up this career and people look at him a certain way at work and at home. And even this notion of reinventing is scary, because all that then gets, in his mind at least, wiped away. So when I come to him and I'm just like, just imagine being able to do something different that, you know, aligns your purpose and your interests with your money making, he can't hear it yet, because he's dealing with the loss of his identity and like the death of him being the man.
Right.
And, you know, at 51, 52 years old, you know, this idea comes in that, oh, I've already reached the pinnacle in a lot of ways. And yeah, I'm miserable, but I also don't want to lose so much of the external validation that I've gotten for all these years. So reinvention, this is why we're doing this podcast, right? It's a real thing. Like, it's a process. This is why we built the community, to give support in all these different ways, because you are going to experience death to some extent in reinvention. Like, a part of you does move on, but we're here to tell you, go through that process, because you're going to stay stuck in a bad situation otherwise, and you're not going to be living your life to your best. And you know that, which is why you're listening to this conversation. So you might as well turn to it and say, all right, I'm going to face the hard stuff. I'm going to face the death of certain parts of my identity, of certain parts of myself. And I know, or I hope, that there's something on the other side. And we're here to tell you that there is.
Yeah.
And there's a process after you face that, face the music to an extent, that we can help you and other people like us can help you and get to a better place. But our call right now is, hey guys, let's face the music. Like, let's deal with what's in front of us. Yes, there's going to be hard moments, hard decisions, maybe even hard conversations around these changes that you might have to make in the future. But let's turn to it now and not delay because you know it's going to come at some point. Right?
Yeah, and I think there's an ownership of the feeling, right? When you're in this point where you're resisting changing all the external validation that you get. I mean, this is hard stuff. We can talk about it, but it really on an individual level, everybody has to go through it and has to work through it. That's considering reinvention, right? It's owning the feeling, allowing yourself to feel how bad it feels, the situation that you're in. Because I think one thing that I know that I relied on, a lot of distractions, right? And I think that lots and lots of people are out there relying
What do
on
you mean by
distractions and even addictions, right? You know, for me, there was a lot of happy hours during that decade where I was really like, I don't want to be doing this, but this is what I'm supposed to do. There was a lot of drinking, you know, and it was not always like, this is fun drinking. It was like shutting my brain off so I can stop thinking about this horrible place that I spent all day at that I have to go back to tomorrow type of drinking. And luckily for me, it's not the sort of thing that like spiraled out of control, but it definitely affected my life, my quality of life, at a certain point, just the way I was showing up or not showing up for my family to a certain extent, right? And there's a million different things you can put on that list that people engage in. I mean, it can be as seemingly benign as Netflix, watching 3 hours of TV every night or whatever it is, when that might be the time that you actually could be spending, you know, watch an hour and spend 2 hours on your project or your side hustle or your creative life or whatever it is that you're
building
into.
something new,
building something, right? So getting to the point of recognizing that there are escapist behaviors in your life that you're engaging in to manage this pain,
right,
or to run away from this pain. And one, identify those behaviors, but then two, the harder work is like taking the pain,
right,
allowing yourself to really feel it. Because, you know, your question you posed to your buddy that he got a little pissed off at you about, that's the realest one of all. And that really speaks to me, man, because I looked at this like, I was staying in this work to make this money because in my mind, I'm like creating a lifestyle for my kids. And that is the justification, is I'm doing this for them. And then at a certain point it switched, or, you know, I think I evolved into thinking about it in what I think is a better way, which is, this is the example I'm setting for my kids is what I'm doing. And what a great example to set for my kids, that in midlife, actually, you can shift gears and say, oh, I'm actually going to do something that really lights me up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to figure that out. And it's going to be hard, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Oh, man, that's
because
so
it's
huge.
The right thing for me and for us as a family.
I love that. I mean, I can't even tell you how huge that is, right? It's a mindset shift, you know, to say actually making a change that has a direct relation with what my fulfillment in life is, even if I'm going to go through something hard, is the example we want to be giving, because we're all going to go through challenges in life. But I want to go back actually to the point around these compulsions or these addictions, right? Because look, as a coach for 20 years, I can't even tell you how many times I've gotten on a Zoom call one-on-one with somebody who from the outside, they had it all, right? They had it all. And then they come onto a call, you know, they had the money, the lifestyle, the success, and they come onto a call and they're telling me about these things, these behaviors that have built up to the point where they know it's untenable to live that way any longer. And we can do the laundry list of the compulsions. We all kind of know what they are. There's substances, right? There's a lot of watching, a lot of social media, a lot of distracting, a lot of other things also.
I mean, it could be like exercise. It can be like really benign, seemingly positive things.
When it becomes compulsive, right? That's when you want to start to recognize, okay, like something needs to shift, because I'm going down a path that is starting to get out of control. And that's usually when people come to, oh my God, the coming to Jesus moment, like I need to make a change, or I'm starting to see certain things in my life that are not being taken care of in certain ways, like in the past. And I might even be hurting people in ways directly or indirectly. And so what we're trying to do is preempt a lot of that here. Like the call of reinvention is recognize it early, turn to face the music as early as you can, and start dealing with the truth that you're not on a path that's giving you deep fulfillment. And there's a process of transformation here that can be really awesome and beneficial for you once you turn into it. And find people, find a community like what we have, find a coach. This is a time to go to therapy. Like this is a time to get the support, because what most people do at this stage of reinvention, that first stage where they're not really on fire about the new projects or what it might be, is they isolate.
Yeah.
And isolation is the death of successful reinvention. You've heard me say that several times. This is not a time to isolate. This is a time to get support, to be honest, to have those conversations. And then once you do that, it's really amazing what happens. And I think we want to go there, right? Because once you start to say, all right, okay, Todd and Chris, I get it, right? You guys are right. You banged it home. I'm going to turn. I'm going to face it.
Like, I've heard it enough times.
I've heard it enough. I know you're right. Okay, this episode I'm listening to right now is my moment to be like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then you can start to have a little bit of fun and space opens up, because the next thing that we love to have people do is get clarity. Okay, well, what could life look like on the other side? You start to imagine. You start to be creative with assessing what are the gifts that you have? What are the talents that you've accumulated? What are the things that you would want to do? And when I started to have this conversation with my buddy, it was really interesting because he actually did have ideas and projects that he never looked at being possibilities for what he could do in the future. But just with the frame of what we're talking about here, he started to think about it differently. And I saw it in his eyes. It's like a thing that you could see in someone's eyes. You're like, oh, I never thought about doing it that way. I never thought about my life that way. And that's where I want to fan the flame a little bit. Not that he has to go do that thing, but at least he's open now to these ideas that there's infinite pathways in front of him that could have different levels of joy and fulfillment. And yes, going through the death of his previous identity and ego, while challenging at times, also is an opportunity of birthing a new series of possibilities and identities that, guess what? At midlife, you can choose it. It's a choice. You can now make a conscious choice to actually create the future that you want. That's where I get super jazzed.
How was that moment when you were talking to your buddy and you brought that up? Like, did you see, sometimes you see the reaction or the change in their demeanor or something when you actually get them to go there a little bit?
It's a silent moment and you can see them thinking, and their eyes kind of like look up. And for this guy, it's an idea. There's a golf course being built that he's doing some random consulting on. It's like this creative project on the side, but he started to think, oh, I could get more involved in that. And then, of course, actually, this could be a really good move for my family because they were thinking about moving in the future anyway. And then he started to put puzzle pieces together. Like you started to see this series of new ideas come into play for him, and it got him excited. And then he came back and he shut it down. He's like, well, I'm not there yet. I'm like, no, look,
that's okay.
It's totally fine. That's fine. But I said to him straight out, I said, look, that's the start.
Right.
I go, look, in 10 years from now, are you going to be doing what you're doing now? And he said, no, definitely not. Right. He said, absolutely not. There's no way. He's like, actually, in 2 years, maybe even a year. So he knows the writing's on the wall and he's not being forced out.
But he's getting there. He's getting to that.
He's getting there. And it's coming from the pain and suffering is overwhelming the rationalization of things are okay. And so he's hitting that point. And so now is the time that you do want to start flipping the switch and thinking about with excitement what is actually possible for me. Right.
And you're not necessarily saying that idea, like the golf course idea or whatever, is going to be it. Maybe for him it is. That's awesome. But I know when I have conversations with people who are in that stage zero of reinvention, let's call it, right? Where you're not really fully admitting to yourself that it's going to happen, or maybe like your buddy, you're admitting that it's going to happen, but you kind of can't make that mental jump between, well, in 10 years, there's no way I'm doing this, but how do I get there?
Right.
You have to start taking action at some point. Right. So it's just kind of getting over that hump. But a lot of times when I talk to people, the first reaction is just that there are no possibilities. Almost everyone I speak to, if I really push them to think about what they might want to do and to get a little creative with it, they come up with like 25 things or something. Like they come up with crazy long lists. And I actually kind of love that moment from a coach's perspective, doing this live and I'm talking to them, just like seeing them kind of like break their own barrier down around it. Again, you can be creative and come up with all these possibilities. It doesn't mean that any one of them, as it is in this moment, is going to be the thing. Just getting to that point of being able to open your mind to the possibility for a little bit. Like we always say when we talk about clarity, it's like give yourself a little bit of time, a couple of days, a weekend, whatever, to be untethered from your current situation and envision this and imagine this. I think just that experience alone actually helps a lot of people go back to the job that next week.
Sometimes,
and just be like, hey, I have this glimmer of hope now. I have this glimmer of possibility. I can deal with this a little bit, but I also now know something I can't unknow.
Yeah.
Which is
It
that
does something,
there's
right?
more.
Yeah, it does something when you do that, when you do this process of just getting clarity and putting ideas on the table. And I love when you say this. You say it all the time, that when you start coming up with these new pathways for your future, none of them have to be it right now, right? Like maybe at some point you hit a moment in time where you know, all right, I'm going to go build that golf course, or I'm going to open that gym, or I'm going to do something that's a little bit different. But it goes in stages. And so I think for a lot of people that are on this very corporate trajectory, it's so built in that we need to know with certainty what we're going to do.
Right.
And now we're in midlife, and now we're saying, guys like us are saying, actually, you got to learn to play with uncertainty. You got to learn to play with things that don't have a definitive answer. And that's really scary for a lot of people, which again is why we're doing this podcast and why we coach people in this process. But learning to play with uncertainty and actually look at things with more of a temporary experimental mindset is so important. So when we're talking about getting clarity and thinking about different pathways, like you're right, people do all of a sudden have all these ideas. And what's so funny is that the ideas that they really get in their heart are the hardest for them to admit to others for some reason.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's like so fascinating to me, but it's like, why? Like you love that thing.
There's a whole dynamic there.
There's
Like
something
you
there.
care about it so much and it's so core to your being.
You're
and
embarrassed
it's
or something.
so deep. Yeah, you're embarrassed or not even that. It's like admitting it to yourself that could be a possibility in the world. It's something that would light you up so much
Right.
that it's like scary. The sad thing to me, and I caught myself doing this, was this idea of you might live a life where you never even open yourself up to that possibility. And the reason why you don't do that is because you're trying to keep yourself safe. You're trying to protect yourself from maybe the heartbreak of trying the thing you love and it doesn't work out.
Right.
For me, the magic is trying the thing you love and it doesn't work out is still better than doing the thing you hate and it does work out. You're talking about certainty. I just want to go back to that for a second. I think that's so important related to this. I actually wrote this morning in my morning pages. Get a little coachy, morning pages. Uncertainty is the human condition. You cannot escape uncertainty.
Right.
We have all these illusions that we take on. I mean, corporate work to me is the number one seller of the illusion of certainty and the illusion of stability. And like, you don't have to look too far to see the amount of layoffs that happen, the amount of unexpected uncertainty that pops up in that world.
Especially now, right?
They sell you this idea of certainty because a lot of people we talk to are comparing this imagined future at their current job or in their current role. I guess they just think it's going to continue in perpetuity exactly as is, and they're going to keep making X% more a year and climb the ladder and nothing could go wrong. It's a really unfair comparison against this new potential thing that you're exploring that you really don't know anything about, right? But that is the comparison that people make, is like this idea that nothing can ever rock this boat. And that boat is really rockable.
Yeah. Reinvention is reprogramming, right? It's reprogramming your mind in a bunch of different ways, right? And every time we do an episode, it's a different way to think about your future career and also your future life and your future money making and all that. And so a lot of the reprogramming is getting off the track of everything is laid out perfectly for you. My friends, we have to do this right now because the world is changing so fast, right? We talk about AI, and we talk about emerging technologies, and we talk about changing industries and the political landscape and everything going on in the world. We just don't know the future. And so the people that, in my opinion, will win and be able to ride the waves that come that are unknown will be those who are masters at flexible living, flexible work, you know, like really being open and porous to like what's happening and being able to change really fast. And so it's a skill to be able to do that, and a really hard one to learn when you're so used to not living and breathing that way, when you've just gotten on the train for 20 years and you went up a corporate ladder, and now all of a sudden you're being forced to think in this new way of like, all right, like what are the projects I want to take on? And, you know, how do I build different projects and how do I manage things? And that's what reinvention is. This is why we have the 6 tenets of it, which is the idea of going through this process of like just facing the music, right? And then the idea of then clarity, like what do I want to do? What could be good around that? Then the idea of growth mindset, like working on your mindset, taking action, finding accountability, all the things that we talk about in reinvention, like they're real qualities, they're real practices to master, but we got to start with the beast, right? Which is just we're in a current moment in time, and we have to be humbled that we are all programmed to think and be a certain way in the world. And now we're being forced to think about it differently. And our call is permission. It's okay. It's okay that it's hard. It's okay that it's not the easiest thing in the world. We are going to be doing this for a long time, I believe, because there's a lot of different ways we can slice and dice this conversation. You know, I know that you and I want to be giving people tools and support in all the different ways that we want to. And we're not the only ones doing this. Like, there's other people that can also help reinvent yourself and think about these things differently. But I think the call of this episode is to turn and face the music no matter where you're at in the reinvention process, right? Stop delaying, stop distracting, find support, subscribe to this podcast and others like it. Start having those conversations now, because you know you're delaying, right? Like, you know, for 10 years,
life is short. Life is short.
10 years you were, you know, in a position that you knew was slowly diminishing, right? Until it got to the point where it was untenable, right? And so let's preempt that mindset and reinvent with proactivity and with excitement as fast as we can. That's the call.
Absolutely. Yeah, life is short, right? For me, I got to a point where I said, what am I really doing this all for? And when I look back on my life, will I have actualized the things that are really in my heart, in my soul, that I really want to bring out into the world? This is one of those things. We're helping people reinvent. I'm coaching people along with you. We have a podcast. This is something I really, really want to be doing. I'm going to be looking back so happy that I've made this change for myself, right? How many of us out here have a million different things kind of buried down that we're just never going to let see the light of day unless we, as you say, face the music and realize, hey, on some level, that is really, really hurting me, to like keep holding that down. So this is about life, right? We say we're talking about career. We're talking about life. It's your one precious life, and you don't have a hell of a lot of time. So
go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah. I mean, look, you're singing my tune. I mean, that is what this is about. It's a blip in the matrix. You know, this life is a blip in the matrix. It goes by so fast. I'm looking on the screen. I'm looking at my hair is white, man. Like, it's short, you know, and we need to get out of our own way and create a path or paths where we don't look back with regret. We could go a million miles deep in that, and we do in other episodes, but I think we cap this one right now. The call is clear. Let's all face the music. You know, I love these conversations with you, man, because it motivates me as we're talking to do it even stronger, to go for it even more, to like get out of my own way even more, right? And I'm appreciative that we found each other and that we're doing this. And if you're listening in, follow us along here, because these are the conversations we're going to be having now and for a long time, and we're excited about it.
Thanks for joining us for Reinvention's Holiday Fireside Chat.
More soon. Thanks, everybody.
Moment I break